any questions, you can type it in the chat, or you can just unmute your mic at any time. Do not feel bad interrupting me. All right, so a little bit about me. I figured since you're spending an hour with me, I would introduce myself a little. I know several of you in there. I see Miss Hunley, and I saw Miss Rawlings, and Matt, and Kelsey. I feel like it's been so long since I've seen everybody. I'm sure you all feel the same. But I teach social studies at Central Hardin. I mainly teach civics, which is our 10th grade social studies class, and I teach all of our collab classes for the 10th graders civics class as well. And then I teach law and justice, which is an elective. I'm a Hardin County Schools Fellow and a Level 1 Google Certified Educator, and I still consider myself a new teacher. This will be my 3rd full school year, so I feel like I've really been a sponge these last few years, and I'm still learning, but I learned about interactive notebooks during NTI, and I told Brandy like it was a huge lifesaver. So I'm excited to share it with you all, and hopefully it'll be something you all find useful as well. All right, and I'll go ahead and start by saying, again, interactive notebooks were not my idea. Brandy shared a webinar during the last school year from Kentucky Go Digital that Heidi Nelt presented. So a lot of these slides come from her presentation, so I wanted to give her credit. And there's also a link to her presentation with additional resources that I would encourage you to check out afterwards as well. All right, so first of all, why I love them. Again, along with them saving me through NTI, they were just a neat, practical way that I thought would be great for in classroom, or even during, if we have to go back to NTI or the Online Learning Academy. They're very versatile. So they're great for curating resources, videos and articles. It's everything that you'll see that you need all in one place. And that's why it was such a lifesaver for me during NTI. When I was posting assignments in Google Classroom, I would essentially like upload the resources they would need and then the assignment separately, thinking that would be easy for them. And they were having to click here, there, and everywhere. And I realized for all of us, for me grading, for them finding what they needed, it was just overwhelming. So these interactive notebooks simplified all of that, which you'll see. I also love them because they give clear digital instructions, and we know how students are with instructions. They usually have to hear them like 3 or 4 times, so it's in front of them so they can read it 3 or 4 times if they need to. It's great for differentiating. So again, I teach a lot of our collab classes, so this is something that was very important for me too. It helps kids stay on track. Again, you'll see that in just a minute. And it encourages visual thinking with graphic organizers. All right, so how to use them. I have primarily used them for direct instruction. So obviously I just started using them during NTI. So that's been my biggest use, but definitely plan on using them in person in class. So either students can use them individually. This could be something they can do on their own in person. They could do it whole class. You could do it in the station. There's really just unlimited ways to use them. You can use them digitally, which again was very beneficial for me. These will be great if we do have to transition back to NTI, or if you are going to be teaching the Online Learning Academy. So really you can use them no matter which way you teach. And again, they're great for differentiating. A couple other ways you can use them, and I'm not really going to go into great details because I have not used them this way, but I've provided some links for those of you who want examples and learn more about it. They would be great for like bookwork or a book study. So if you're in your English class, if you're reading a book and there's some checkpoints that you want to address with the students, these would be great for that. And also for project-based learning. So something that you have ongoing that they can work on, this would be great for that as well. All right, so what are they? So I'm sure several of you have used them or seen them before. But just in case, I'm going to show some examples. I have a couple that I used this last go around. And then Whitney Carpenter, she's an art teacher at Central Hardin. When I shared this webinar out last spring, she loved it too, and she started using them. So just for you to get an idea of some different ways to use them, I've included a couple of her examples as well. First one I'll show you. Can everyone see this? I want to make sure I set it up the correct way. The government and the economy. Thanks, Matt. Okay, so the first way I started using them was social studies. If you remember social studies from the good old days, it's a lot of lecture and notes. Well, I try not to do that, but I do want to give my students some background information. So in the first class, we would go over what is the government and the economy. So they would take some brief notes. So they're either after their notes activity or their next day activity would be this Google slide set that I would create for them. And I would assign it to them individually. They'd make their own copy. And this is where they would complete their work for the day. So on the first screen here, we have what our lesson was over and just general instructions. Now, the first time we did this, I did do a video of instructions to walk them through. But this is something they were doing twice a week, so they became pros at it quickly. So I would encourage, and we'll talk a little bit in a minute, just make sure you give detailed instructions. Screencastify to walk them through is an awesome tool to insert here as well, just so they know exactly what they're doing and where to find the resources. So my first slide, it was a review over the notes that they just took. Again, I have my instructions up top of what they're going to be doing. They would watch this crash course video, which is embedded in the slides, then answer these questions based on the video that they watched. So again, everything that they need for this activity in one slide, the video, and this is where they're answering their questions. Second slide is a little bit of a review activity I made where they would have to answer some questions about fiscal policy just to help me understand or make sure they understood the notes from the day before. Excuse me. So this was a little interactive to where they would have to tell me what happens to government spending and taxes and fiscal policy. So they would move the arrows around. And here's a little word bank just for a recap again, so for me to make sure they understand it. So they would move the words around. So just something simple for them to do, interactive, visual, and just easy for me to glance over to see if they got it. The last slide I had was a way for them to apply that lesson to a current event. So obviously COVID and everything going on with that made it very easy for us social studies teachers to relate to real world. So then they have, again, some resources embedded here. There was an article that they would have to read and then answer these questions based on what they read. So again, it's so simple. It was easy for them to find exactly what they needed versus having to click back and forth everything on one slide. And what I loved it for me personally as a teacher is it was super easy to grade. So each student would just submit this for their assignment and I can just click right through and grade all in one place, everything. I can leave feedback while they're working on it or afterwards through comments or just typing directly on it. So it really simplified life, which is why I absolutely loved it. So that's one example. Another example I'll quickly go through. This one was a bit longer. They had the whole week to work on the same concept over Kentucky economics. Here I did embed the video of how it works, the instructions, and then again on each slide we have our instructions, they have the resource, the questions, more links embedded, and here's where they would type everything that they needed. On this one, they did have to insert pictures, so I did take this picture of Kentucky and make it the background, which I'll explain a little bit more in a minute, so they wouldn't accidentally delete it. But there's just so much that you can do. Here is an NPR video embedded on there that they had to listen to and answer questions. So it's just, you can use a variety of resources, videos, audio, pictures, articles, whatever you want to use, which is why I personally enjoyed it. And again, the simplification from them. Just one place for me to look at to grade. So I'll quickly click on Whitney's examples. Well, maybe not. I'll ask her for access for those. So you might have to go back and look at those later. But if you aren't more of your traditional English, science, social studies, if you're wondering, well, how can this work for me? Whitney did a great job with her art example, so I'll make sure that she gives us access to view those so you can see that. And then again, in the links provided, you'll see other examples for other ways that you can use this just beyond the way that myself and Whitney did them. So that's essentially what they are. We'll go through a quick step-by-step process on how to make them. If you are familiar with Google Slides, it's something that you probably already have the skill set for, but what I liked about the webinar I watched with Kentucky Go Digital is she did give some quick videos about how to insert some of these things if you're unsure and some tips and tricks. So we'll go over some of those. Okay, so the very most important part I learned very quickly was the instructions. So the more clear I made the instructions, the less questions I had. Surprise, surprise. Also, again, using Screencastify to record you walking them through it on your screen, showing them how to select those hyperlinks and how to watch those videos and where they're going to type their answers at. That was key as well in them being successful in this. So I would encourage you just to be very, very detailed in your directions. All of my first slides always had an overview of what they're going to be doing, and then on each slide, I would also have detailed instructions as well. So that way they were 100% sure what they needed to do. With your instructions, you know, just like anything when you're making your slides, use bulleted main points, and again, videos of you, sorry, I was under the chat, of you walking them through the process. Screencastify, I'm sure most of you know, but we have the premium access again for our Hardin County schools, which I was really pumped about. Because again, that wasn't their lifesaver through NTI. But that just makes it easier for students to know exactly what they need to do. And Kelsey and Jane, are you talking about my presentation link says you can't view, or the examples?
Dana, I'm trying to look, or Dana, sorry, I'm also in Dana's room. Dana, I think it's yours. It's the one that you posted at 8:30.
Okay.
The presentation up there. When you click it, it's just like you can't get access.
Gotcha. Well, I will, at the end, I'll make sure you'll have access to that. So yes,
totally.
Thank you.
This is really good, and this is really helpful. So I want to be able to copy this so I can look back at it.
Absolutely. Yes, I will make sure. I'm writing that down. So I will fix that. Okay, thank you. Okay, so instructions. Here's some quick tips. And again, this is one of the videos from the Kentucky Go Digital webinar. I'm not going to play it just because you don't want to watch a video through a video. But again, it helps walk you through on how to, some tips on making these. So again, I would use bullets, keep it brief. Some of my instructions were a little lengthy, but I just wanted to make sure they knew what they were doing. Subheadings help. And again, if you look back at mine, my instructions were almost always in the same top place, in the top of each slide with a different color background, so they know exactly where they're looking for those instructions. Use arrows. And a couple of mine you saw, I was like pointing to the links to the pictures that they should be looking at. So again, to make it very clear. If you're worried a student will delete a box, you can that you have, or a picture or something you have embedded, you can like snip, which is what I did for that Kentucky slide I had where they had to put some pictures on it. I actually snipped that picture and I made it my background for that slide, so that way they weren't able to delete it accidentally or mess it up. So you can do that as well. Of course, you can move things to the background, which is what just this video on the screen will show you. So just little things like that for, you know, high schoolers. Usually they're pretty good with slides, so they wouldn't, that's not really an issue, but I know with younger kids, when they start moving things around, they accidentally delete it, then they're reaching out to you, raising their hand. So just little things like that you can do to make it more user-friendly for them. So examples, again, I have from my instructions. Again, you would see these two slides here. I always put them up top, different color backgrounds, so they knew exactly what they were looking. They knew these hyperlinks, if it was blue underlined, that was a hyperlink for them to click on. Again, that was something that we practiced. I wasn't as detailed in instructions as we went because they knew the drill. But just little things like that just to help them when they see, they know, oh, if it's underlined in blue, that means I need to click it. It's probably a link. Here, again, this NPR audio was something different I did, so I wanted to make sure they knew exactly what to do. So I had an arrow pointing to it. Would tell them to select play, and they could view the transcript. If it was something that they weren't able to pick up on by listening, they'd rather read it. So just little things like that I learned were much more helpful. And then again, here having the video overview of that more complex project that they did. So it's a little bit more work for us up front as teachers, but at the end result, it makes life so much easier for them and us because you're not having to answer as many questions, and they actually spend that time working and they know exactly what they're doing. We're going to go over how you insert different types of activities. There's a variety of things that you can do, and some of the examples you'll see in the slide. Some are very simple, such as this graphic organizer here, and you can make them a little bit more complex. So it's whatever, what you're needing, you can do. Graphic organizers are simple to create. We'll walk you through that in just a second. Links to YouTube videos. I love videos, and all my interactive notebooks I would create, I try to always do one video, one article, at least one image to kind of mix it up so they don't get too bored, and also to help whatever type of learner they are. Another little tip too I'll walk you through with videos is there were some videos maybe from news articles that were on YouTube, so there's little tricks that you can do to still essentially embed links to those as well. Links to articles are great, and you can also build in some checkpoints after each main section. So this could be something, again, for more of a project-based learning or a book study that they can continue to work on and have those little checkpoints in. All right, so first we're going to look at graphic organizers. So again, a little video embedded in here from Kentucky Go Digital on how to do this, but it's super simple. To do so, you would use shapes, arrows, and callouts to create a basic graphic organizer, which is here. Something I did not know until I watched this is normally I would make my text box by using the text box option and making like a fun background color. Well, you don't have to do that. You can actually use a shape and just double click in the shape and you can type in text. Like that was like, how did I never know that? So that makes it a lot easier. You center your shapes by clicking and choosing the center on the page horizontally or vertically, as what's going on over here. You can customize your shapes, the border weight, the color, whatever makes it visually appealing for you, and it's something that makes it more simple for them to view. I always like to make the boxes or the shapes, white, so they stand out. But of course, you could do different colors, whatever you want to do. And again, the thing that I learned through this was add text by double clicking in your shape and typing. Who knew? You all probably knew that. I did not know that. I would always use a text box, and you don't have to do that. And then, of course, align your text, and you can your tool with alignment tool, and you can move the shapes around to make it into a graphic organizer, which is exactly what we're looking at. So just an easy way for you to make a simple graphic organizer versus having to find a picture of one and inserting it. So super simple to do. Of course, you can further customize. You can change the fonts. You can add different border styles. Again, just a variety of things that you can do. You can add pictures in the background and make it pretty. You can keep it simple. Just so many different ways that you can make these. Here's an example of one that was created. So again, in these shapes, they double click and they're able to type right in to the shapes. So pretty simple. Here's another example. Yes, Kelsey, another trick, and I think in one of those videos, Heidi addresses that. Another trick for keeping things in place is using the master slide deck. Yes, and that's something I've just started using as well, and I thought about including it, but I'm not really great at it yet either, but you're exactly right. So using that master slide deck is another way that is essentially making that background that they can. Something to remember whenever you're doing the master slide deck or of a picture of the graphic organizer, if you include links into those, they won't work. So you'll still have to type the links on the mains. They'll no longer be clickable. All right, using videos, my favorite. I always like to insert, like I said, at least one video, just because short, sweet videos. My students seem to do well with those. It makes it different versus just reading. I would love, as a social studies teacher, but I know they're not going to be excited to read those, and a lot of them won't be on their level anyway. So videos were a good way to kind of supplement that. You can insert videos directly through the slides through the insert feature, or if it's something that you're not able to find that way and it's something like embedded on a website, you can essentially just insert a picture and then embed the link on the picture that they click to that takes them where the video is. But this is an example embedded on here. This looks like it's probably a TED Talk. I didn't do this one, but that's my guess. And then after watching it, you can have them type in their answers to whatever questions you have there. All right, so if you want to insert the video, you go to the insert feature, which is what we're looking at on the screen now. You can search through YouTube, you can search directly by URL, and you can embed it right in the slide to where they watch it directly on the slide. So again, they don't have to go anywhere else. It's right there in front of them. Also great about the video option is, I think in this next slide, we're going to show how if, say it's like a super long video, there's only a certain part that you want them to watch. If it's through the YouTube or the way you're able to insert it this way, you can have a start and stop time exactly where you want them to watch. You don't want them to watch the entire video. So you're going to insert, you're going to choose the video, and then just drop it right in there. So this is going to show you how to create a start and stop time for that video if you don't want them to watch the entire video. So you can customize it once you have the video embedded into it. You're going to click on the video to select, choose the video options, and then you'll see on the right here, you have these options here for your start time and end time. So something I utilize often because even though I love a good 10 or 15-minute videos, my students don't always. So I'll just start and stop to the part that I really, really want them to watch. All right, using articles. So you, as I mentioned, you can insert articles similar to what we just did with videos and have them answer questions about that as well. So articles are pretty simple. You're essentially going to hyperlink the articles. That's going to provide more information, one that you want them to read. With the article, obviously you want them to do something with it. So you can create a graphic organizer for students to make notes in, or if you want them to answer specific questions about the article, of course, you could type up questions. So when you insert the article, you can hyperlink it to text, maybe the name of the article, or you can insert a picture and then hyperlink it to the picture, whichever way that you want. But obviously with your article, once they click on that link, it will take them to another website where the article is. But then they'll come back to their slide set to answer any questions or complete any notes about it. So to insert the hyperlink on an image or object or text, you would select the object by right-clicking the object, selecting the insert, the link after you've copied and pasted it, and it's done. So we just watched this example here. Here's where you would embed the link to the article, and then this is the different boxes that they would complete about the article. All right, so I went through that pretty quickly just because I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for you all to ask questions, think of ideas. If any of you all have ever used interactive notebooks before, I want to share them. Now's the time. If you want to start creating one, you're welcome to do so. And if you want feedback on it, we can help.
Hey, Dana, can I ask you real quick?
Yeah.
I use these all the time for all the same reasons that you already said. And if you don't have time to make one, there is a ton of these already made on Teachers Pay Teachers. I don't know if you've ever looked. I mean, there's a bunch of resources that are exactly like this that you can even take and modify or whatever. Just want everybody to know that because there's a lot already made.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll say as well, if you're thinking about, look, I like this, but I don't know where to start. And Brandy's probably listening, and she's probably gonna, like, her eyes gonna twitch when I say this. But when I started using them for my first slide, I wanted it to be a review of what we already did the day before. So that review is something I always did anyways in class, like on paper. So I would just make that into my first slide, but then incorporate other resources like a video or article, a worksheet into a slide. But if you're thinking, where do I start? Well, just think about something that you would normally do anyways in class and start there, and just how can you add to that? And that's really where I started. And then with that, I was able to get a little bit more creative and think of, oh, there's these videos we can add to this, or there's this resource that supports what they're doing. So that's just an easy way to kind of start simple, and then as you get more comfortable, add more to it. Has anyone else that you want to share, maybe outside of social studies, a different idea? Anybody? No? So if you all want to take some time, we still have about 25 minutes or so. If you want to get started making them, and if you need some feedback or you have questions, I know Matt and Kelsey and others in here, they've made these before. Need any help or want to get started, or share them with me, and then while you're doing that, I will also make my slides available for you to view, and I'm going to message Whitney real quick so you can see hers. But once you get access to my slides, I would encourage you to go back to this third slide here for the bit.ly for Heidi. There was lots of examples she has on her page as well, for like the project-based learning or a book study. So if you want to see what those look like as well, you can look at those.
Dana.
Yes.
This is Gina Steinbrenner. I have a question.
Yeah.
I teach GT, so I have a lot of ideas of the way I could use this, but my question is your whole presentation built and then shared with the kids, or do you build as you go so they're not working ahead? How do you maintain that? How do you gauge that?
That is a great question. So for me personally, the slides I would assign them were the ones that I wanted them to work on that day. With our Kentucky project, for example, that was like a week-long project, and I was a little worried to give them that up front on a Monday and know that they had until Friday to complete them. But luckily they stayed on pace. But for me, I just gave them work on then and there, just so they wouldn't rush or hold off to the last minute to do so. However, I know from parent perspective, my son is a middle schooler at East, and they had something similar that they worked on, and theirs was like each day they would work on a different slide. So I know some teachers do approach it differently. So I don't know if there's anyone on there who wants to share if you've done that, where you've given them several slides that they work on over a period of time, or you just do it kind of day by day. But I did mine day by day just to keep them on track and focused daily.
Okay, and then the last question I have is, once you've got it made and you share it with your students, is that right so far?
Yes.
Okay, and then they'll make their own copy of it. That way they're not changing the master on everybody, right?
Yes, good questions. So with NT Out, when I would upload it through Google Classroom, I would do it to where it would automatically make a copy for each student. But if you're in class, absolutely, I would share. You could share the link and change it to force, or you could still assign it through Google Classroom. But absolutely, you want to make sure that they're making a copy and not everybody's working on your master together. Unless you want them to collaborate together, then I guess that would be appropriate. But absolutely.
And do they share it back with you, or do you just go into each individual student to monitor their progress in your classrooms?
Whenever I would assign it through Google Classroom, they would actually turn it back into me, but I would be able to see, their progress while they're working on it through Google Classroom. So that would probably, I would say, for a teacher's perspective to do it. But absolutely, if you're going to do it in person, in class, and you have them force a copy, then I would have them either turn it back into you through Google Classroom or share it, whatever your preference is.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Were you able, Matt, can you check to make sure you can view my slide set now that I posted a few minutes ago?
I was able to get into it.
Thank you, Brandy. And I'm sure you'll
have access to it now.
Perfect. I'm sure y'all are checking the chat, but Caitlin put a link there for different graphic organizers you can use and make a copy of to insert if you don't want to make your own.
And this is Caitlin. I shared that those are all from Ditch That Textbook. So if you are subscribed to them or you're not yet, do it, because they send out free resources for interactive notebooks and graphic organizers and stuff like that. They go right into your drive all the time. And then I also shared one that we did, the senior English class at Central Hardin. We had all these kids reading a book that they kind of had to choose what was relevant to them in the book. So we did like a whole book study interactive notebook through Google Slides where they could click and choose their pathway, and it directed them to the slides that only applied to them. So that's something you could check out too.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a really good idea. And that reminded me, Caitlin, I don't know how, but something I didn't touch on that I meant to. What in our collab classes that Ms. Cooper and I had, we would always try to limit it to 3 slides max, just because of the time constraint. I'd say 3 to 5 is probably best at a one-time setting for you and for them. But what was also great in our collab classes, if I wanted to make sure I'm still challenging my higher, making sure it's adaptable for lower learners, I could differentiate. So maybe the first 2 slides is the same for everybody, but that third one for the kind of applying to real world maybe is a little lower level for those still struggling with the concept, versus the ones that were really grasping it. That third slide might be a little bit more challenging, so maybe a different activity. So if that was the case, then obviously that was something you'd want to assign to them through Classroom, because you can assign whichever slide set's appropriate for them, and without them realizing, unless they're working, their slides are different. So a good way is to kind of, keep it similar, but still differentiate depending on where that student is. Any other thoughts or questions? Is there anyone in here but you're thinking that might be something that you might be helpful or relevant? No, hopefully somebody. If you all want to get really fancy, I don't know if I'm sure some of you have seen this before, but you can do something similar. It's not going to be, as kind of cut and dry Bitmojis. So I've seen a lot of the interactive Bitmoji slide sets, which is kind of similar. You have all your resources in the slides. It looks a lot more fun than my slides. It's something I'm probably going to dabble into a little bit, but it's a similar concept, just looks a little bit more exciting. Has anyone ever done those yet? The Bitmoji, the virtual classroom?
I started playing around with it yesterday, and it was kind of fun. It's pretty simple to do if you're used to like putting in links into your Google Slides already.
Sweet. Awesome. All right. Are there any final questions? You all had some really good questions. I'm going to take note of, because I'm doing this training again at Central. So I'll share with students. Any last thoughts? Again, I know the link's been shared a couple times for you all to check in that Google form to make sure you get credit, but that's on your slide set as well. Just make sure you've done that. Shelly, anything last minute to add?
Nope, just like you said, just remember to fill out your Google form link. I just put it on there again a second ago that you attended today. If everybody wants to give some shout outs to Miss Garrett over there, she did an awesome job. I enjoyed listening and learning, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your conference. And if you have anything you need from either one of us, be sure to send us an email, or we'll be happy to answer any questions you have about anything. Right, Miss Garrett?
Yep, absolutely.
All righty. Thank you, guys. And you can go ahead and start looking for your next session, and enjoy the rest of your day. I think Miss Garrett's hanging here again, though. She's got another presentation coming up. So if you want to hear more awesome things going on in her classroom, just hang tight.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point, Miss Garrett, and then I will, if you'll stop presenting here in a second, I'll put up your next slide to introduce your next session. And let's stop this recording.